Hi, today is 3rd of March and it's a very important day because we have a lot of news. That's why I'm doing the news brief for today. So, here's the newspaper. The first headline is that the investigators are trying to understand why a 37-year-old woman stabbed two kids in one small Estonian village, Võhma. And about the Tallinn sport high fees, there is a court battle going. So let's go. So on the second page, there is a big story about the stabbing. I'll tell you in short. A 37-year-old woman, I think a few days ago, stabbed two kids, 8 or 10 years old, and then tried to escape. She jumped off the first floor balcony, but she was apprehended and now she's in jail. And the interview is with her, the person who lived with her, and he thinks she just went crazy. So it's really interesting to know what are the reasons. Is it COVID related or something? Why people are going crazy? But this kind of thing is not often, so don't worry. The second interesting news I read that the government decided not to go with a PPP project for building a road. PPP is a public-private partnership, and the former government wanted to go with a private partner. Public-private partnership to build a 4-lane road and to build them quickly, but since the government now changed and the new government thinks that it's going to be first too expensive, 75 million euros more expensive, and second it will take more time to negotiate with the European Union because it might be they might need a permission. And how those public-private partnerships work, Estonia had done it before with renovating the schools, but really it makes only sense if the government can't loan money very cheaply, but now it's not the case. And it was done, I think, 10 or 20 years ago for some schools in Tallinn, but at that time Estonia wanted to keep the fiscal balances in check, not to have any big deficit, because we wanted to get into Eurozone. And that's how the public-private partnership work, that the private company builds, for example, the school renovates it, and then the government has to buy it back over a longer period. But I think it's a good idea. If it's more expensive, why do it? And now the money is cheap, so I think it's good that they're doing it with their own financing. During the weekend, the businesses from today is 3rd of March, so this is the first weekend, the restaurants and bars have to be closed, also the shopping centers, and during the week the restaurants have to close at 6 o'clock, and the restrictions are coming much harder on Estonia, but because we have a lot of sick with coronavirus at the moment, and the numbers were growing, so obviously something had to be done. So they're discussing should the president of Estonia be vaccinated out of the queue. So I think it's a good thing to vaccinate the president, so she wouldn't get sick. But they are applying for a permit. So there is also a big article that even healthy people who got the coronavirus, after the virus, their lives were changed, so they feel some consequences of the virus even after they've been cured. So hopefully those vaccines are coming soon. And now they're also putting more restrictive laws for wearing masks, and some shopping centers, they already started to be much firmer with the mask wearing clause. So there were like kind of almost fights with people who were not willing to put the masks. But I think that it is good to protect the others if it helps, and if it doesn't, so better to be safe than sorry, because obviously it's an awful sickness. On page number 6 there is a big article about bird flu, that a lot of swans are dying from the bird flu, so they're having difficulty removing those dead swans from the nature. Also a good news is that Ravela Road, they're going to connect it with Pärnu Maantee in Tallinn. Few months ago or month ago, there was a big discussion that people did not like the project which the city government was suggesting, and that there should be an architectural competition. And now the city has listened, and that now they're scrapping the initial way they should have done it. They would have done it, and now there is going to be an architectural competition, which is really good. So the city government of Estonia really listens to its citizens, and that's how the democratic that's how the democracy has to work. So there is also a big article about Czech Republic. The Czech Republic is willing to, if needed, to put the military into action. They also have a lot of sick people from COVID. And here I want to give my regards to YouTube channel Honest Guide. So I've watched you. It will be interesting to see how this pandemic pans out in the Czech Republic, in Prague. So let's see. There is also an article about Hungary. They're using also different Chinese and Russian vaccines, but this is obviously a propaganda move on the side of China and Russia. So the economics page is really interesting today. All the articles are interesting. So Tallinn, the shipping company, is suing the port of Tallinn because they think that the port fees are too high. They think they're 20% too high, and that the port of Tallinn is in a monopoly situation, as is charging more. The port of Tallinn also do not agree with this statement, and they're going to protect the interest of their owners and the owner of Port of Tallinn, 67% of the 67% of the all how we call it, the 67% of Port of Tallinn is owned by the government, and the rest it's on the stock exchange, on the Tallinn Stock Exchange. So obviously government wants to receive their money, and I understand Tallinn because they are in a difficult situation, but we are not going too deep in that news. So the inflation in the European Union has remained low, 0.9%, and it's low in Estonia too. This is good because it's obviously high inflation will bring the real estate prices high, but that's not a problem at the moment. The employers union in Estonia thinks that the government is not moving quickly enough with the vaccination, and that how come nobody gets the vaccine on Saturday and Sunday, and only few hospitals are dealing with the vaccination. It should be much quicker. Maybe private companies should be doing that too, that it has to be sped up. Also, the OECD thinks that even before the pandemic, the salaries in Estonia were too low. That 26% of Estonian population who is in the working age is not working. It's a really high number. We have to get back to it with an in-depth look, because the official figures of the unemployment rate in Estonia are much lower. So we have to see how come OECD thinks 26% of the working population in Estonia is not working, and they're stating here that 206,000 people who should receive some support of finding work in Estonia do not receive that. So that's bad. So during the Corona times, there were more court cases relating to work disputes, which is kind of expected. Also, this is called in Estonia X-Road. This is the electronic system which government uses, and it shares the access to private companies for different integrations into apps, into information systems. And they have discovered that not all the participants in this electronic system, their background has not been checked, or they don't have a contract at all, which is kind of crazy, and they should look into that. And on this page, page number 13, very interesting news that the pandemic times have not decreased Estonians' shopping habits. So Estonians have bought 10% more than last year, and mostly things to renovate to renovate the real estate. So 10% more than last year, and these merchants have sold more through the online retail space. So through the internet, the 48% more than last year in those products related to repairs and industrial products. So this is really good. And compared to Lithuania and Finland, and Latvia, where the merchants sold less than last year. So good for Estonia. And obviously Estonians did not have the ability to travel, and Estonians are really big travelers. They travel at least like 2 times a year, because it's cold in the winter. It's always good to go to Egypt or to Turkey or to Spain, but Estonians did not have the opportunity this year, so that's why they started renovating their real estate and buying real estate. So actually that is the situation in Estonia, that the real estate prices are rising in spite of the coronavirus. The rental prices have dropped, but the real estate prices have increased. Also interesting article asking where are our our quick tests for the coronavirus, that Austria and other countries have used them, and why Estonia is not used them. This is a really good question. Also a big article that as this year there were almost no tourists in Estonia, that maybe it's a good time to think about Tallinn's old town and maybe have some subsidies so other companies and so it to be more to have more different companies in Tallinn old town, not only tourist based companies, because now when I walk through the old town I see a lot of closed shops and a lot of businesses, but they were mainly those businesses were mainly aimed at tourists, and this year there were no tourists, so maybe it's a good time to develop some other shops, maybe IT companies to move into Tallinn, maybe some more bookshops, something related with the educational system. It's a good idea. So there is also a big article concerning the Estonian health system, which is generally good, but obviously can be improved, because the current health system was done 30 years ago, and for some specialty for example, for some specialty health professionals, it's you have to wait for quite a long time. If you have some issue, it might take 2 or 3 months until your turn comes up, and this should be sped up. And maybe the system should be revised. But that's all for today. See you in the next video. If you have not subscribed, subscribe. I want to thank all my subscribers and one member who already has joined my Smart Traveler membership program. So, see you in the next video.